Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here, the YGOPro profile for the Cubic Burn Deck 2017 edition. I'm just going to go through everything in here, and then I'll explain how it works. So for monsters, we've got 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord, 3 Duza, the Meteoric Cubic Vessel, 1 Buster Gundil, 1 Blade Garudia, 2 Dark Garnex, 1 Gira Guile, and 3 V-Jam, the Cubic Seed. For our spells, we're playing 3 each of Foolish Burial Goods, Cubic Wave, Fusion Conscription, and Cubic Karma. Our traps, 3 Heavy Storm Duster, 2 Blazing Mirror Force, 3 Magic Cylinder, 3 Unification of the Cubic Lords, and 3 Barrel Behind the Door. Our extra deck is 1 each of Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubic Lord, Super Dora, Gustav Max, Utopia the Lightning, Utopia Prime, Utopia, Silent Honor Arc, Heartland Draco, Castell the Skyblasting Musketeer, Ghostrick Doulahan, Slacker Magician, Lyralusk Assembled Nightingale, Gaia Saber, the Lightning Shadow, Decode Talker, and Akashic Magician. The side deck I'll go over in a moment. So clearly this is a burn deck, and it uses cubics, and the cubic we use the most to burn is Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. This cannot be normal summoned or set, must be special summoned from your hand by revealing 3 other cubic cards in your hand with different names. It's unaffected by other monsters' activated effects if their original attack is 3,000 or less. If it destroys a monster by battle, it can attack again. And probably most importantly for us, during the end phase, each player takes 3,000 damage. So obviously this thing is a big beat stick, having 3,000 attack and attacking twice, but it's that burn damage that's the most effective. Adding with that, we're playing Barrel Behind the Door. This is activate when a card effect would inflict damage to you. Your opponent takes the damage instead. So if you get Barrel Behind the Door with Crimson Nova, then instead of you both taking 3,000, your opponent just takes 6,000. With that, we've got 2 other burn cards. Blazing Mirror Force. This is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can destroy all their attack position monsters, and you both take damage equal to half of the combined original attack of those monsters. We only play this at 2, even though it's pretty good, because you can't use it with Barrel Behind the Door, so you'll be taking that damage as well, and since you're already sometimes taking it for Crimson Nova, it can be bad, but it's still pretty good for stopping your opponent from attacking, which is what this is mostly weak against. We've also got Magic Cylinder. This is when an opponent's monster declares an attack, target the monster, negate the attack, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its attack. So it's really not that difficult if you're doing 6,000 or 3,000 with this to do another 2 to 3,000 when your opponent attacks with a big monster using Magic Cylinder, and that'll usually be enough to get you game. Everything else in this deck is basically just running the cubic engine because you need 3 different cubics in your hand in order to summon this. We play a lot of different cubic monsters, some of them at one-ofs because you have to have different names, as well as the cubic spell traps, which also count. Probably our most important spell is Cubic Karma. When this card's activated, you can target 1 cubic monster you control, except for V-Jam, then send any number of V-Jams from your hand or deck to the graveyard, and that monster gains 800 attack for each sent, even if this card leaves the field. So that first effect alone can both deck thin by getting these out of your deck, setting up your graveyard, while also giving a monster up to 2,400 attack. Rarely used, but can be useful. It has a second effect that can have your opponent's life points, but it's so situational I've never actually used it. Probably the most important thing is that if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard to add 1 cubic monster from your deck to your hand. So this card can search the entire archetype, and you can get it in the graveyard both with Foolish Burial Goods, which just sends 1 spell trap from your deck to the graveyard, or with Duza, the Meteoric Cubic Vessel. When it's normal or special summoned, you can send 1 cubic card from your deck to the graveyard. In addition, once per turn during either player's turn, if a monster was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can have this card gain 200 attack for every monster with a different name in your graveyard until the end of the turn, which is a pretty minor stat boost. Doesn't really affect things all that much, but it is useful just to get just that little attack boost. Mostly you're just sending things to the graveyard. Again, most of the time you're sending either Cubic Karma or Unification of the Cubic Lords. This is a trap that lets you fusion summon 1 cubic fusion monster from your extra deck, of which we only have 1. I'll go over him in a moment. More importantly, if this is in your graveyard and a face-up cubic monster is destroyed by battle or leaves the field, you can banish this card to special a level 4 or lower cubic from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. And if you do, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects this turn. So if you've already searched enough, or you're worried about being OTK'd, this can be a great thing to dump into the graveyard. And then if this leaves the field by anything, even if they kaiju it or send it back to your hand, you can banish this, summon another Duja, And not only can that Doujin not be destroyed by battle or card effects, but you'll get to use his effect again and send either another Cubic Karma or another Unification to the graveyard. You can also send Cubic Wave to the graveyard, although it's not as useful. Its graveyard effect is that you can banish this and any number of Cubic monsters from the graveyard to put Cubic counters on monsters your opponent controls equal to the number of Cubics you banished. Cubic counters are pretty good. Monsters with Cubic counters can't attack and their effects are negated, but with links in the game, it's not too difficult to get rid of any monster that's on there. And since you can only use it during your turn, it's not too effective unless you just want to bait out a negation. Probably its more important effect is its first effect. You can target a Cubic monster you control and one monster your opponent controls. Your opponent's monster has its attack halved, and your attack becomes double, which means if you use this on Crimson Nova, you're having a 6,000 attacker that can attack twice. Even this goes up to 3,200, even more if you can get it with Cubic Karma or something like that. This is also really useful for your other Cubics, which we rarely use, but I'll go ahead and mention them real quick. Dark Garnix can't be normal summoned or set, must first be special summoned from your hand by sending a Cubic monster you control to the graveyard. If it's summoned this way, it gains 1,000 attack, which is not very much, but that's why you have Cubic Wave and Cubic Karma to boost it up. When this card destroys a monster by battle, you can target 2 V-Jams in your graveyard, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon them. Then you can add 1 Blade Garudia from your deck to your hand. Blade Garudia, you gotta send 2 Cubic monsters you control to the graveyard, which fortunately you should have the 2 Cubic seeds. It gains 2,000 attack, it can make 2 attacks, and if it destroys a monster by battle, you could target 3 seeds in your graveyard, special summon them, and then add 1 Buster Gundle from your deck to your hand. Buster Gundle has 3,000 attack, can attack 3 times, and if it's sent to the graveyard by battle or card effect, you could target 3 Cubic monsters in your graveyard, special summon them, and then add 1 Cubic card from your deck or your graveyard to your hand. So they can be pretty good, but they require these long sort of like rank ups where you have to tribute like a Douja or a Seed to summon this, beat over something, get V-Jam, next turn summon this, beat over something, next turn and get this. So it's really not worth it. I play all 3 of them just in case you happen to get into a situation where you can use all 3 of these, but most of the time these are just in your hand so you can use Crimson Nova's effect. There's also Gira Guile. He has pretty much the same effect as Dark Garnix. You gotta send 1 Cubic to the graveyard to summon him. He only gains 800 attack, but he inflicts 800 damage to your opponent, so he does a little bit of burn. The other difference is instead of adding Blade Garunix, it adds Vulcan Dragini, which again has sort of the same qualities as Blade Garunix you have to tribute to, and then when you destroy something, you can add this third one. It has 2,400 attack and does burn damage. So there's actually 2 different rows you can rank up. You can either go this guy into Blade Garunix, into Buster Gundle, or this guy into these ones. I went for these because they have more attack, even though this is a burn deck and these can burn more. These are just a little bit easier to get their effects to actually work. Either way, I wouldn't recommend centering the deck around them. I would just play them so you have more names for Crimson Nova. Anyway, our final Cubic monster is V-Jam, the Cubic Seed. This cannot be destroyed by battle. At the end of the damage step, if your opponent's monster battled it, you can place it in your spell trap zone face up as a continuous spell card, and if you do, place 1 Cubic counter on your opponent's monster. And again, monsters with Cubic counters can't attack, and you negate their effects. So it's pretty good. It can act just like a Marshmallow. It's a good stall wall, and if you want to, you can negate monster effects by activating that. In addition, if this is treated as a continuous spell card during your main phase, you can just special summon it so it comes back again afterwards. Most of the time, though, you're just putting them in the graveyard with Cubic Karma or tributing them to activate these effects. Or if need be, you can go into your rank 1s if you're really stalling. But this deck rarely stalls, it searches pretty quickly. The only things left in here is Fusion Conscription. You can reveal 1 Fusion monster in your extra deck, add one of the materials specifically listed on that card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, although for the rest of the turn you can't normal or special summon monsters with that name or activate their effects. So this is pretty much just useful for summoning Crimson Nova, because the fusion monster is 3 Crimson Nova, the Dark Cubic Lord. Unfortunately, you can't summon it the same turn you do it, but we've got some stall, so you should be able to hold out either with your V-Jams or your Douzas with the unifications, or just your Mirror Forces and stuff like that. This card's also decent if you already have Crimson Nova and you're going to take more burn damage than you can handle. You can activate this, and then because monsters with that name can't activate their effects this turn, it won't inflict the damage to you. Our final card is our tech slot. It's just Heavy Storm Duster. Target 2 spell traps on the field, destroy them. Can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card. Normally you're waiting like 2 turns anyway, because you want to get the barrel behind the door, so having a little bit slower trap form doesn't really bother things. Traps aren't really a big thing in the current meta, so you don't really have to worry about getting mirror forced most of the time. If you did, you could just as easily swap this out for Twin Twisters, because again, you can discard any of your spell traps to get searches, or put a Cubic Seed in the graveyard if you want. The extra deck is mostly just a toolbox. We've got the rank 1s if you get 2 seeds. We got a bunch of rank 4s in case you get 2 Dujas. You rarely, if ever, get 2 of these on the field, so I wouldn't really worry about it. We've got a couple rank 10s because you can get 2 Crimson Novas on the field, and if you don't want to take that burn damage, you can instead make a Gustav Max and just inflict 2,000 to your opponent, or a Superior Dora in attack. You can obviously make links if you get 2 of these. I just put some generic ones that are out at the moment. And that just leaves us with our last boss monster. Crimson Nova Trinity, the Dark Cubic Lord. It takes 3 of these, so you're rarely going to get it out, especially because your fusion card is a trap. You pretty much need to open up with 3 of these and then set Unification of the Cubic Lords. But if you summon out, it's a pretty beastly monster. It has 4,500 attack, cannot be targeted by or destroyed by your opponent's card effects. When it declares an attack, have your opponent's life points. If it destroys a monster by battle, it can attack again, and if you would take effect damage, you can inflict your opponent with equal damage that you took. Finally, that just brings us to the side deck, which is pretty much just other options. You can play the other rows of Cubic Beast, as I mentioned before. There's more rank 4s and more links you could put in here. Summoner Monk's pretty decent because you can use it to get Duza out of the deck to make rank 4s by discarding any of your spell cards, of which you have a lot, and half of them are pretty good in the graveyard, so it works out. And then also Link Slayer is pretty decent. If you control no monsters, special summon this from your hand, discard up to 2 cards and destroy that many spell traps. If you're looking for more spell trap removal or more monsters on the field, because this is light on monsters, this can work for both of those, especially since you can discard your cubic karma to search. So just another option in case you don't want to use Heavy Storm Duster, if you want more things in there. So there's your deck for this week. I hope you enjoyed. Next week I should finally be taking a look at Subterrors and actually having their Link monster. Not a full-blown Link deck, but it has links in it that I actually summon. So there'll be that. Until then, good luck and have fun.